Good afternoon, evening, and morning, wherever you find yourself. This is a couple of disclaimers. Don't listen to me. Everything I or we say is a bunch of bullcrap. And this is fun, not for profit or for health. I am not a financial advisor, so don't hold me accountable to anything because I am not a financial advisor and I am not giving financial advice. I give thoughtful suggestions and insight on stuff that I've discovered in my navigating the finance world and hope that other people can take advantage of that. And that's what I do. So it's not financial advice. But what is here is a different perspective of looking at things. Let's see, there it is. This is a different perspective of looking at things other than the way you're being perceived them. And I'll, of course, narrate, as usual.
In front of the assembled press and the nation, Donald Trump and his cabinet celebrated the battles won in his first incredible 5.5 months in office. If you were paying attention, you would have heard some absolutely stunning statements, like, "I think we're getting along with China," and his remarks on Franklin Roosevelt. But let's be honest, you weren't supposed to hear any of that. Instead, you were bombarded with headlines about Jeffrey Epstein, Elon Musk's new party, the problems with the big, beautiful bill, and a dozen other distractions. And here's the kicker. The British elite are so rattled about what's happening in America, they're openly suggesting that everyone would be better off with a king to counsel President Trump. Yes, you heard that right. British Lord Wallace of Saltaire, on Independence Day this year, told his fellow lords in the British Parliament, and I quote, "Over the last few months, watching Trump in the United States, I have for the first time begun to appreciate the usefulness of the ambiguous relationship between the monarch and the prime minister. There is no one to say to President Trump, when he wishes to behave without any constraints whatsoever, 'Are you sure you're doing the right thing?'"
Some may need crowns, some may need filling, some may need nothing, but the goal is to
Some may
help
need
them.
to skip that ad.
Think about that. The empire is so unnerved by a president who isn't taking orders, they're fantasizing about putting a crown back on American soil. And Trump knows how to use the key weapon in that fight, the full power of the U.S. Constitution. I'm Susan Kokinda, and for decades I've been on the front lines of a fight to create a durable political movement that can finally challenge the British Empire. And I'll tell you right now, Donald Trump is doing it. So in this update, I'm going to break down some of the quiet bombshells Trump dropped in his public cabinet meeting yesterday, how the empire is reacting to it, including their not-so-secret wish for a king and the eruption of the Epstein scandal, and most importantly, how you and I can defeat it. And to defeat this, you're going to have to think strategically and historically, because that's what the enemy does. Promethean Actions newsletter will give you the principles and the tools to do that. So I encourage you to subscribe and become a member. So let's start with yesterday's cabinet meeting, where one by one, cabinet secretaries outlined some of the transformational policies enacted in just a few months, and Donald Trump punctuated those reports with some remarkable statements. In just a few sentences, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that under your leadership, the administration has prevented a war between India and Pakistan, brokered a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda, ended a 12-day war between Iran and Israel, is working on a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and is creating the framework of extending the Abraham Accords, making more progress in stamping out the flames of war in the Mideast than has been done in decades. Now, this week, we are in the middle of a lot of moving parts in the Mideast, involving Israel and Hamas, and probable discussions with Iran. Trump is navigating very turbulent waters with the likes of Netanyahu and his hardcore Zionist faction on one side, and radical Islamist groups on the other. And he's doing it in the way only Donald Trump can. And the outcome isn't by any means certain. But all of this is still stunning. How can Trump do this? Because he's kicked over the geopolitical chessboard, a game that has been played by the British for centuries and is the stock and trade of the neocons. Create a permanent class of enemy nations, especially among the other superpowers, so that no combination of nations can emerge to challenge the imperial financier elite. Well, Trump isn't playing that game any longer. Twice yesterday, in talking about Operation Midnight Hammer, he went out of his way to talk about perceived or so-called enemies. He said, And our so-called enemies were watching. And I've spoken to some of our perceived enemies. I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies. Pay attention to that. And remember that last week, Russian President Putin and his government spoke of the deep historical ties between the United States and Russia and the potential for deepening relations. Now, of course, Trump is expressing his frustration with Putin over the Ukraine war, but not from the standpoint that Russia.
Now, I just did a show yesterday or I was on a show yesterday where I talked about, they were talking about something about resources, gold, silver. And I had made a statement that Russia sold Alaska to America because their only other option was to sell it to England. So they sold it to America to save face and also to spite England. Now imagine what would happen if England owned Alaska and all the mineral wealth up there instead of the United States. So when Putin says the deep historical ties, that one move the Russians did, I think in 1870 or something, somewhere around there, they sold it to us. That one move was to spite what exactly this lady is talking about, because Russia has been fighting the imperialistic financial system for a long time. Another reason why, and this dives into BRICS and SWIFT system, because they've taken that imperial control, and the English and the royals have taken this control of the SWIFT system, and they're using it to create wars and division. And that's why I don't think BRICS is going to be hanging around long, because once we get rid of the imperialistic financial control, then the SWIFT system can be what it was. And everyone was happy with it. But now that we have a digital layered economy going on top of it, there's going to be an ISPO 222 that'll usher in another age of economic wealth and prosperity that takes it away from the English monarchy and elites and the French elites and monarchy and Spanish and Portuguese and all of those that didn't really like us being our own country. But anyhow, back to the show.
Is a permanent enemy, but he's simply dealing with Putin's actions at face value. Or look at how Trump immediately responded to the Agriculture Secretary's announcement of actions against Chinese purchase of farmlands in the U.S. While agreeing with those actions, Trump went out of his way to say, I think we're getting along with China. I do want to say that. I think we have a really good relationship with China lately, and we're getting along with them very well. This is not how the geopolitical game is played. This is the President of the United States exercising his unique constitutional powers in foreign policy. No wonder Lord Wallace mused about checking Trump's powers with a king. And think about what Lord Wallace is really saying here.
Also, there was just a court case telling the courts and the judges to stay out of the executive branch, or actually the executive branch's power and authority when it comes to trade deals and treaties and negotiating with other countries, because there was a liberal court out there in, I think, the 3rd district that was passing injunctions stopping the president of the United States from doing foreign service stuff and all the foreign stuff that we have to do as a country. So it's a little bigger than what she just said.
In the British system, the Prime Minister is merely the administrator for the interests of the City of London and the monarchy and the global elite, which they represent. But Trump answers directly to the American people through our Constitution. And he's committed to crushing that imperial system and has made more progress in 5.5 months than you've seen in your lifetime. Now, speaking of the British monarchy, King Charles is at it again, making his 3rd high-profile foreign policy intervention in 2025. After publicly meeting with Ukrainian puppet President Zelensky twice this year to signal Britain's support for continuing that war, King Charles just hosted French President Macron in a lavish ceremony this week. As BBC said about the visit, the king is more than a figurehead. And the British press pointed out that Britain and France are resetting their relationship as they deal with the United States, which is no longer in sync with their Ukrainian war and their permanent confrontation with Russia. Macron, in his speech to the British Parliament, also said that Britain, France, and Europe should reduce their excessive dependence on China and the U.S. Certainly an interesting comment in the light of Trump's cabinet remarks. Now, let's put this in historical context. Go back to the end of the 19th century, when there was a real potential for the American system to spread to Russia, China, Germany, Japan, and many other countries. For the last 150 years, the British Empire has waged a permanent war to stop that from happening, to keep the world's nations at each other's throats so no one can challenge the City of London and Wall Street. But let's talk about the elephant which is rampaging through the headlines and the social media world. Jeffrey
For future reference, keep in mind in like 10 years, she was talking about London and New York because they control New York. Something will happen to both those cities.
Epstein. During the meeting, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked about Epstein's ties to the intelligence community.
A chilling prophecy ignored by the media is unfolding right now. And if you don't recognize the signs, you won't see what's coming next. And if you're anywhere near these U.S. hot zones, your survival depends on what you're about to hear. The bombs have stopped falling, but the ceasefire isn't peace. It's the calm before the storm. But this isn't random. This was written thousands of years ago, and what comes next is even more terrifying. Ezekiel 38 speaks of an unprovoked attack on Israel by a force from the north, and after decades of debate, the evidence is stacking up. The identity of that force is no longer a mystery. Right now, you're being given a rare chance to see the truth, because a long-lost prophecy points to a catastrophic trigger event in 2025, one that will blindside 99% of Americans. It won't be a virus. It won't be a war you can see on the news. It's something you won't understand until it's too late. But one man, a devoted Christian father, has spent the last year decoding this mystery. And what he's uncovered inside the Word of God is sending shockwaves through the faith community. Thousands are already taking quiet.
Wow,
She
sorry about
said,
that. That was
quote,
a
to him being an agent,
milk
I have
for my
no
teeth.
knowledge about
Sorry,
that.
guys.
We can get back
That was not
to you
part
on
of the
that.
show. That was a commercial.
So what's really going on here? This is where the bodies are buried, sometimes quite literally. If you know anything about Jeffrey Epstein, and Mike Benz did an excellent synopsis on Benny Johnson this week, you will focus less on prostitution, child pornography, and debauchery, all of which are tools deployed by British intelligence for centuries, and more on Epstein's actual intelligence ties. Benz makes clear, going back to Epstein's role in Iran-Contra, his ties to Adnan Khashoggi, and Les Wexner and the infamous mega group of British and Israeli-connected billionaires, that whatever files and lists might still be in existence, they are not at the FBI. They will be at CIA and more likely MI6 and Mossad. So you're not going to find them sitting on Pam Bondi's desk. And as far as I'm concerned, the jury is still out on why she handled this the way she has.
Yeah, she did.
But how do you deal with this? This is more than a list. This is an existential battle against the enemy's intelligence apparatus that has been in place in the entire post-war period, undermining our good presidents and aiding and abetting the lousy ones. In a post entitled, MAGA Left Dazed and Confused on Epstein File Conclusion, Sasha Stone wrote, at the moment, many Trump supporters are reeling from the Epstein news. And trust me when I say this is the last thing MAGA needs. With Elon Musk starting his own party and directly challenging Trump and MAGA ahead of the midterms, not to mention the opposition to the One Big Beautiful Bill with Medicaid and other things, a blue wave from the midterms feels increasingly likely. Well, I don't think it's likely, not if we do our job. But she certainly nailed the intention of Trump's enemies. Open up flanks against him. Epstein, Musk's third party, libertarian attacks on the Big Beautiful Bill, all while Jerome Powell is trying to sabotage Trump's economic offensive by keeping interest rates up. This is a coordinated attack. The empire is desperate to keep you distracted, divided, and demoralized. Frankly,
see, that's the thing I wanted to get across in this live stream is everyone's like, oh, what's the Black Swan? What's the Black Swan? They're going off all around us. And like she said, it's not going to be it's not going to be anything. We're being overloaded with bullshit from every direction. And that's the game the intelligence communities and high financier who basically own the intelligence communities work to stay in control of financing of the world. And actually, if you look at what Trump's doing, he's actually breaking down the imperialistic control that England has over America's financial institutions. And as this lady said, in the backing of bad presidents and the foiting of the good presidents, they have actually changed the direction of this country to benefit them. We were in Vietnam, wasn't our war, it was NATO. Basically, England made a lot of money. We were in Korea, it wasn't our war. England made a lot of money, but we lost the lives. So they've been doing this for quite some time.
If they had their way, they'd put a king in the White
What's
House
up,
to
Duran?
make sure we upstart Americans stay in our place. So how do we fight back? Let's go back to
What's up,
that
Cyril?
cabinet meeting and Trump's economic offensive.
So when you're hitting over something like
Damn
the bluffs,
commercials,
it just
hitting
felt
us.
like nature was giving you this big.
Trump and members of his cabinet laid out breakthrough policies, and they're not just talking about them, they're doing it. Inflation is down, new factories are being built, energy production is being unleashed, a trades apprenticeship program for millions of young Americans is being worked on. Throughout the cabinet meeting, Trump and others underscored the scientific lunacy of the Green New scam and have announced new executive orders to dismantle it. Trump has deployed key members of his administration, like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Peter Navarro, to explain the impact of his tariff policies and how we'll grow, not just cut our way out of inherited deficits. This is the American system in action. National credit, infrastructure, tariffs, and industrial development, all under the protection of the Constitution. Donald Trump is reviving the American system, which the British Empire has spent over 200 years.
And much to their credit, the last time we had a really industrial revolution was before they took control economically of our system. So we're actually going to be going through, because of the dismantling of their system on our country and the control they've had over both parties, first the Democrat, then the Unit Party, which is for Republicans and the Democrats. That tearing down is going to bring back, as I've said, a V-shaped recovery and jobs galore in manufacturing and all kinds of things. And they're throwing trash at us, making headline news, making everyone feel hum and glum and doom and boom, whatever. And it's not that way. That's part of the game. That's the psyops. Everyone says, oh, there's psyops. Yeah, it is. It's just not what you thought. It's our greatest supposed ally who's been controlling our financing, killing our kids by sending us off to proxy wars to fight for them. Just like everyone says there's a proxy war in Ukraine. Okay, well, America was using proxy war in Korea and Vietnam for decades. Come on, guys, let's catch up with the program here.
Years trying to destroy. But to fully revive the American system, the power of the unconstitutional Federal Reserve will have to be broken. And Trump's fury at Jerome Powell and his cabinet meeting call for him to resign underscores that. Now, think about the relationship of two things. The British Lord's wish that Trump had to kowtow to a king, and the role of the Federal Reserve, which is an unconstitutional imposition of British central banking. The empire wants institutions above the president, and the empire absolutely hates it when an American president freely uses the U.S. Constitution to defend the people and the republic. Now, here's one more nugget from the cabinet meeting you probably missed. At the end of the meeting, President Trump discussed the new portraits, which he has chosen for the walls of the cabinet room. One wasn't surprised that he has up there now Washington, Lincoln, and McKinley. But how about this? He has a new portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt now on display in that room. And it was clear from his remarks he wanted it there, and he wanted a good portrait. Now, that should set the hair on fire of so many of our conservative friends who have drunk the British concocted Kool-Aid about FDR being a communist and a totalitarian. FDR, like Trump, knew how to wield the power of the presidency and the Constitution to rebuild the nation and defeat fascism. And had he lived, FDR wanted to forge a relationship with Russia and China to defeat the British Empire.
Yeah,
that's the key. The Constitution is not just a piece of paper. It's a weapon that in the right hands can defeat the empire once and for all.
Bingo. So what do y'all think about that? I've been kind of trying to push that lady to get more people on board with the line of thought of what is actually, I believe, actually is going on, and why we're seeing so many fires all over the place. Hold on a second, Indy. Let me get that link back up on my channel. Let's see, playlist, playback. See, I love having JM here. He knows how to do this shit a hell of a lot quicker than I do. And I might not even do it right, but I'll give it a shot. Okay, I'll give the YouTube show. Let's see, get back over here. This is the actual YouTube show. Let me see if I can actually get a working link from this, and I'm not sure if I can. But I can do this. No, yeah. It's actually a pretty informative, more long-term look at the actual problems we're having, because I've noticed a lot of people are focusing on the problems and not the cause. And they're looking at the problem and then coming up with the cause for the problem, when actually the problem was manufactured and it was made to look a certain way. And these people at the Promethean, they kind of sort of are on more of my line of thinking of what's really going on. That's why I'm always so positive. One of many reasons, even though I didn't get the job I was supposed to have got today out of the union hall after not working for 17 months and them telling me I'd get the job, I ended up not getting it. I'm still positive because I know long term, because of the moves made, because and everyone hears and knows these sayings, you know, no pain, no gain. Well, congratulations. We're going through the pain right now. The gain will be significant. Position yourself properly. And that's why, again, I wanted to show this in particular part of the Promethean updates and their show, because it's coming up real close for the prosperous time. Oh, hey, what's up, Jay? And if you're not, you know, in the, you know, death to Israel, death to Palestine crew, or the what other prob? Oh, Pakistan, death to Pakistan, death to India, or, you know, the other sideshows they're throwing at us, you'd notice that a lot of the freaking wars that were going on have ended. So yeah, they're losing money big time, because since when was the Fed created? What, 1913, 1911? That is actually the imperialistic arm of England, in, as that lady said, unconscious, and as all of us know, it's an unconstitutional branch of nothing, but says it's part of the government. Yeah, thank you, Jay. So this thing has been going on, this in particular issue, and there's more issues. This is not going to cure everything. What it is going to do is it's going to stop our kids from having to do proxy wars like Vietnam and Korea, so that someone in another country can make money off of it. And then eventually, yeah, of course, the corruption comes over here, and we have people put in power by those others to continue that resource gain at our expenditure. And again, if you look at even further at what Trump did and not what happened, the only reason Powell has his job, the first time he was in office, he wanted to put in Judy Shelton. Congress overruled him and put in Powell. But it's given credit to Trump as to putting him in there. But if you look at our branches of government, how it works, you know, he's not the man, Congress is. So Congress put Powell in office under a Trump administration where he did not have a full party control to do things. And he had a lot of rhinos that were, you know, kicking him in the butt as he was trying to do things. So if you look at it from that perspective and not the short term 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 year perspective, and look at it at a, maybe close to 110, 15 year perspective, you will see that we have been presented as free, and we all know we're not. I mean, people complain about it all the time on YouTube. Oh, we're not really free. We're not constitutional. Okay, I agree. And if you just hear what that lady just had to say, she kind of explains why we're not free, why the Fed is unconstitutional but still there, and why we were used for proxy wars for about 3 decades at the expense of over 1 million Americans for someone else to make billions of dollars, and why it's continued and continued and continued, and now it's stopped, and the paid protesters are coming out, and that money got cut off, so now there's no more paid protesters. It's just the people that are so well uninformed and believing that they know what they're talking about get out there to demonstrate when clearly they're wrong. But you can't say that to them because they've been, as they say, they drank the Kool-Aid. They're not seeing the full perspective. And this is why you have to have a full perspective on the situation, because not many people know. I mean, they do, but they don't realize why the federal government is there as an unconstitutional thing and still there. Why is that? Ask yourself that question. How could it be? Why is it? No one has that answer. We just heard it at the beginning of the show. It's part of the imperialistic control of the financial system that they put upon us to control us, making good presidents look bad and making bad presidents look good. That's why all the shitty presidents get so many back-to-back fucking, 8 years Democrat, 4 years Republican, 8 years Democrat, 4 years Republican, 8 years Democrat. And now it's 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. That was the buying of the Democratic Party, then the buying of certain people in the Republican Party, calling it a uniparty, and their control, their financial control of the system, buying those public representatives, and then them passing laws, and that's being, swayed with good work and good economy at this point in time, because they know, they being the imperialistic control that's being broke right now, know, because they started the Fed in 1913. So obviously they're looking at a more than a 100-year game plan. And I could almost guarantee, other than myself and maybe one other, no one here in this chat is looking at the historic effects of what's happening now, starting in 1913. You know what I'm saying? You don't look far enough back in history for that to be a thing. But that is actually the nucleus of this in particular problem we're going through right now. There are others. This is not on the cure all. There are other countries out there that actually enemy countries that want us dead. Not just our quote unquote best allies who've been fleecing us for over 115 years, about 113 years. So you want to know why we're not rich individually and why we can't prosper? Don't blame the president. Blame the people that are paying. You want to know who the puppet shadow masters are, the people behind the veil? I think I just exposed them to everyone. If you look at a longer term history of control, and control is money, and then you start talking about everything they fed us on, about Ukraine being a proxy war, and this is a proxy war. Okay, cool. Now switch that around. Look at the Vietnam War and the Korean War. Okay, first off, they've psychologically fooled you because they weren't wars at all. That was a bullshit psyops. It was the Vietnam police action of NATO, and the Korean police action of NATO is what they actually historically were. Because America didn't declare war. When we declare war, 1991 happens. All of America gets up and says, go kick ass. And we go kick ass. We didn't do that in Vietnam. We didn't do that in Korea. And they lasted for a decade plus because someone was making money on it. So it was the person behind it was exactly Jay the Crown. It was the imperialistic control of our society that's been in control for 113 years that this evil, vicious, orange, fucking neo-Nazi Hitler dude named Trump is destroying. Now you want to see why he's being attacked? Because people are going to be losing hundreds of billions of dollars because we're not going to die for them and let them have money on our deaths in more proxy wars to keep their financial control of our system. And that's why I've said on a few broadcasts, a few podcasts, that this July 4th, when the big, beautiful bill was signed, was the actual first real 4th of July independence of control that America's had in 113 years. I'm just saying, if you want to know where I'm coming from, that's why I'm weird, I guess. And people I don't have a lot of subscribers, and a lot of people don't come in and whatnot, because a lot of people just don't see the real, and it's not the only problem. It is the big problem right now that America faces. After we get rid of them, and in 5 years, they're going to retaliate. There's going to be some shit going on, but it'll be over with in about 5 years or so. And we're going to prosper in that time because of what's going on right now. They aren't. And that's where it drops back to the LBMA. And how many times have I talked about the LBMA being the one that's going to go belly up on the BRICS 3 enactment? They are the only central bank that has asked for an extension up till June 23rd or June 30th, 2028. And they are insolvent. What we have just done is to strike back to guarantee that England's going to no longer be a world power, believe it or not. And the LBMA, when it goes belly up in 2028, everyone else will realize it. But there's a lot of financial maneuvers and maneuvering to be done to where you can make a crap load of money and position yourself a lot better if you are informed actually what's going on. Because what they've been feeding us is the scenario they want us to believe in, so they can make money off of it. Because if I'm going to set a board game down in front of you and I control the board game, I'm going to win. And that's what they've been doing to us. Everyone here in this chat, our entire lifetime from birth till now, our financial future was controlled by this imperialistic system. We also consider an arm of that imperialistic system the Fed, the unconstitutional, not even a branch, the unconstitutional thing that somehow has power. And it could only get that way if they controlled our politicians. See how in depth they're embedded, and the hatred they would have to someone who is not on their list of chosen presidents to bow down to the king, as that lady so eloquently put it. Good evening, Gerald. And JM, sorry I didn't see you come in, JM. So there's a lot more going on from a different perspective. Not that what everyone's perceiving is going on isn't going on. It obviously is. It's just the base root cause of it. And any doctor will know, if you want to cure something, if you want to cure a cold, you don't give a person toenail fungus remover, because it'll have nothing to do with the cold. That's all I'm saying. Make sure you have the right cure for the right problem. And if you're not looking at the right problem, you won't have the right cure. And hey, that's the whole point of it. Because if you're not in control, they are. So if you don't know the facts, you're not in control. So welcome to imperialistic control for your entire lifetime on this planet, on this continent of America, in this country of America, on the North American continent, on the planet Earth. You have been controlled. You have been a slave your entire lifetime, as have I and everyone else, financially. And they've been throwing division at us to keep us separated, because everyone knows united you fall, united we stand, divided we fall. We've been divided for quite some time. Now people expect free shit just because of the amount of division that's been separated or put into us. But when if you read actual history, oh my God, would you be amazed? Yeah. How many people here know that not only was the first slave owner a black man, but he sued to own slaves, and on top of that, 1/3 of the registered slaves were owned by black people? Did any of you guys know all of that? As far as if you want to know how history gets twisted on us and how imperialistic control can take a narrative and change it and use it against us to divide and conquer, taking away our moral high ground, taking away our unitedness, taking fathers out of families. This is all planned by a foreign government. It's supposed to be our ally. And it has nothing to do with it, man. I mean, it's all about money for them, and we are a peasant nation. We are a proxy nation for their funding, and have been, well, obviously before 1913, but they finalized a way to actually control us financially in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was introduced. And quite frankly, every time you look at Powell, he is a felon, actually a traitor, because he's not constitutionally bound or authorized.
He was manufactured, his position was manufactured by a foreign entity. So that's literally treason. I'm just saying. But anyhow, that's probably not going to happen. But that, in literal terms, that is what's happening. But yeah. So what do you guys think about all this? Anyhow, let me get back to deplatforming, hate speech, laws, financial blacklisting. Yeah, choke point 2.0. You got that right, Jay. Oh, there were so many more slaves before the Irish, brother. Slavery has been a human trait since before they wrote the Old Testament. And I believe there was slavery in the Old Testament. It wasn't done by the Jews so much, but there was still slavery back then. And that whole world back then was Middle East. So the Middle East were enslaved. And then you look at the Norse, the Vikings, they enslaved each other. Everybody enslaved each other throughout history. It's the thinking of it being unique to that slavery that fucks things up, because quite frankly, everybody in your history, from whatever country you were in, some point in history, you were a slave. Now, if it's just right now or not is a different story, actually, because we're living in this point in time. So obviously it has more meaning, but historically, it has zero meaning. We were all slaves. Scottish, Irish, slaves. Look at the Hadrian Wall. What's the definition of the meaning of the Hadrian Wall other than a big chain? Oh, we can't kill you and control you, so we will contain you in a part of the world on an island that the only thing you can do is go to the water. In other words, to the sea. From Scotland to the sea is what the Romans were doing to the Scottish. You know, that started long before the freaking Israelis got that platform, put on them. It was put on the Scottish Irish. Because Irish or Scottish. That's why I don't know if anyone knows this, but the Scottish king, Robert the Bruce, his brother was king of Ireland. For a short period of time, the kings didn't last that long back then because they got killed a lot. And that's probably why they didn't have worldwide control of financing. But, when's the last time a king was, I can't say that on live stream. I'm sorry. We'll take this in another direction. This isn't communism. It's techno-feudalism. A good point, Jay. There's new things coming at us. And if you are more informed, you can see and understand and navigate them. We're not going to change the world, but we can change our world. And by changing our world, if everyone here is a good person, when your world gets changed for the better, you will emulate that out to other people because you're kind, helpful, and grateful, which only puts those little ripples in that pond of positivity going out and more people doing it. So it'll be beneficial if your world changes. Don't try and change the whole world. There's already hundreds of billionaires out there got control of that one. That's a uphill battle. It'll take a long time to win. But changing your world, you can navigate this one easy if you just see what is the actual problem that is causing all of these things. They just didn't pop up. We didn't have this crap in the 70s and the 80s, 90s. This is some new shit going on here. Ask yourself the question, why? Why now? And come up with your own answer. Or just go back in history a long time so you can get to the right answer. Because yeah, you'll stop at the area of, oh, we're being controlled. Yep, we sure are. And if you stop there, you'll never change that control. So that means you're complacent to it and you like being a slave. See, Rand, actually, quite frankly, right now, all of America, we have been financial slaves our entire lifetime. Under the imperialistic control of the created Federal Reserve that has been controlling our economy, sinking presidents and propping up presidents since 1913. Unless, you're one of those guys that's collecting Social Security that's 200 years old. I don't think any of us were around back then. What's up, Mike? But anyhow, yeah, I just figured I wanted to throw that out there because I think everyone should have at least a different perspective. You don't have to agree with anything I'm saying. Just realize that there are other perspectives and other things that might be the possible cause. I'm not saying this is. I actually believe it is, but I don't want you guys to believe it because I say it. I put this report out so you can have a different look at the same problem that we're all seeing, but hardly anyone understands why. They think they have, and they actually do have a good understanding of why from a short-term perspective. But that was a cause created for an outcome. And that's been going on since 1913. So Yeah, I know, Attila, and I'm probably going to get. If Indy was up here, I'd be timed out already. But YouTube's in control, so I might get blotted. And how's it going, Attila? I'm just trying to get a perspective out there of a way that every individual, no matter where you are at in your life financially, if you have a better understanding of what it is that's out there, you can make a better outcome for yourself and your family. And I would like to think that in my time on YouTube, that I bring information that leads to that direction for others. Not that I want you to believe me. I would rather have you check it out yourself. And that's why I keep adding that the disclaimer of I could go back and find where the BML riots started. It wasn't back in 1913. The funding that got the BML riots to started in 1913. So the point that someone says, no, it started at this date when this happened, they are actually right from that perspective. But what funded it and what led to the funding of it and how long has that been going on? And then you go back further until you get to the nucleus of that in particular problem that's infesting America. As I said, there are others, but this is a pretty big one right now that we're facing, and we're actually winning, believe it or not. And that's why I have said on live streams where I have a V-shaped recovery that is 100% going to come through fruition. We haven't hit the bottom yet, but I'm already seeing more holes leading upward than downward at the end of this tunnel. So future's looking real bright for 2026. If you're positioned properly during all these chaotic things that these imperialistic people are throwing at us to distract us, you'll know that Congress passed ISO 222. I challenge you guys to find out what that is. Knowing what Congress is doing for your finances has a lot to do with your finances. I don't want to tell you what it is. I would prefer you check it out. Just look at it because they passed it. So it's obviously relevant to financing and your money. And that means your money that is going to be buying silver and gold for you. So if you know how better other people are planning for you to waste that money, you can navigate the waters better and save more of it for yourself. Let's see, what's Jay saying? 50. How about silver when it's 50? Okay, well, I have a speculative thought on the gold bull run right now. And I believe the gold has gone up only because of purchasing, not because of a natural bull cycle, although the timing is semi-right. I think they layered on specifically Basel III's enactment to be July 1st, 2025, back in 2013 when they all wrote it up, because they knew that'd be a time of the gold bull run, and they could fictitiously run the price of gold up higher if you have 187 central banks having to, by requirements of new regulations of Basel III upon its enactment of July 1st, 2025, have to double or 250% their gold holdings. What's that mean? That means all the central banks are buying gold. We all know what that means. Every YouTuber was telling us, oh, it's the PM run. All the central banks are buying gold. And yeah, they were. But they were buying gold not because of inflation. They were buying gold because of Basel III, and they had to become compliant. And to become compliant, they had to over double their actual physical gold holdings, which means 187 central banks of this planet made a mad dash to buy gold. That affects the price. And that's why I say the bull run price action of gold is not natural to a bull market. And that's why silver hasn't started sprinting yet, because we truly don't know at what phase of a natural bull run gold market we are at, because it is historically gold runs and silver sprints, and silver's looking pathetic right now. It's not going in its typical fashion for a gold sprints, which tells me we're probably early for gold sprints because we had such an egregious amount of gold buying by central banks. It drove the price up higher than what the gold bull market would have run it up to at this time for its next pause on its next run or whatever. I don't know the future. But my speculation is that that's screwed up that whole cycle, and people and all these financiers jumped early on that, and that's going to cause the silver run to come late, in my opinion. And even in platinum, it's in platinum. Platinum run is not a natural run right now. The price action in platinum has nothing to do with the bull market. It has everything to do with clean air metals and the BRICS and the One Belt Road Initiative. That's what this platinum metals run is about, because BRICS just lost control of the price of platinum because they're no longer the world's supplier. We have a Canadian company that's supplying platinum. So BRICS lost control. And when I say BRICS, I mean all of those countries. And when I say the One Belt Road Initiative, China took the lead of BRICS to sign on South Africa to the One Belt Road Initiative. And they stated they wanted them because of the diamonds, gold, and platinum. And in 10 years, South Africa, since they signed up, in the first 10 years since they signed up with the One Belt Road Initiative, their gold mines lost $10 billion. How the heck can you lose money? Well, this is why I tell you the One Belt Road Initiative is going bankrupt everything, including itself. You got to know how it works. You know, it's nice to say, oh, they go in there, they do this, they do that. Yeah, it's good. And it's true, they do. But again, the story goes further than that. They take those ports when they build those ports. They took the port of Kenya. It's a deep water port. They took it. You know what's happening right now? China's going bankrupt because they took that port. They loaned Kenya several $100 billion or tens of billions of dollars. Kenya couldn't pay them back, was going to claim bankruptcy. China said, we'll just take the port as payment. Well, now we're having a Red Sea issue, and that port is doing no business. You know what that means? That's the 7th deep water port that China's losing money on. And not only are they losing money on those ports, they're not even getting paid back for the billions and billions and billions it cost to loan those countries to build them. So that's a double loss for China. You don't think they're going bankrupt before America? You're not looking close enough. That One Belt Road Initiative guarantees China to go bankrupt. Guarantees it. And I did a show just the other day on how their freaking building infrastructure is falling apart. New buildings, less than a year old. You know, I'm going to have Independent Mini time you out, Snooks, just because she likes timing me out. I'm kidding. You're blue. She can't time you out. Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's not a good time. It's always a good time to buy silver until the last 6 months before it starts to run. It'll be a good time. And I've said this in the past. Buying silver at $50 is going to be a steal if you're going to play it that way and not hold it for 1,000 years and not just sit on it and do nothing with it. And when I say a play, it's the same play as I told people about the gold to platinum trade 6 weeks ago, even longer than that, for forever ago. As gold was going up, that play was getting better. You could have gotten 3 ounces of platinum and 6 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold just 6 weeks ago. Now you could have taken 2 of those ounces of platinum and gotten 1 ounce of gold, and you'd had 1 ounce of platinum and 6 ounces of silver left over. In other words, you could have made money off gold by doing nothing other than trading it for platinum and then trading it back for gold, having no money out of your pocket whatsoever after the purchasing of the gold whenever you purchased it. That is another way to make money in the precious metals market that not too many people talk about. They talk about it in the gold to silver ratio, and that's all they talk about. Well, hello, still waiting for that one. You know what's happening while you're waiting? The platinum trade. So if you don't wait on the platinum trade, you could have so much more money to buy silver. That's why I'm not a maximalist in any one asset class, because there's so many ways to make money and get back into the asset class before crap hits the fan. You know, it's just, you got to see the bigger picture and see what's going on. And that's why I brought this whole, the Trump weave. That's why I brought this in particular show up on the imperialistic control of America going back to 1913, because it's all highly relevant to now and your financial future. And there are things going to play right now that aren't going to happen ever again. So there's a great time for wealth creation if you got your the right hat on, blinders off, eyes forward with eyeball on your prize. What's up, Jay? I'm sorry for talking so much. Oh, he's smoking.
Hey, no worries at all. No worries at all. I'm multitasking. I'm in the middle of a bunch of things, but Mike Herrera put a comment in there saying he wished he could have bought more silver when it was like $20 an ounce. And so Snooks asked, well, when was that? And it's kind of tough to explain in words easily. So I just pulled up the chart there so people can see.
Yeah, that's another thing, Jay. People don't look at that. And that's why I hopped on platinum, because none of the quote unquote professional precious metals people bring you any of the good deals that are in so many faceted ways that you can make money on platinum. Sorry, James, go ahead.
No worries. You all right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what she's talking about. I don't love to talk.
Let Neil talk.
I got a lot to say, baby. It's not. I hope it's not stupid shit either. I hope it brings value.
So I just wanted, if you can, just pull that chart up for a second.
Oh, I didn't see. I'm sorry. I was reading chat. My
Yep.
bad.
That's okay because it is relevant. So Snook said, well, when was it under 20? And it did pop back down to 20 in like September of the year 2022. And like right up to 2020, it was under $20 an ounce since like 2014. Just back here. So that's all under 20. I'll just zoom out here so you guys can get a little better context on that. So about 3 years ago, and then there was a nice chunk of time when people were able to get it under 20. 2016 is when I started stacking silver. So my average cost is probably around 22.
There's another thing people need to pass down to your children. As you pull that chart out to 50 years, and you don't have to now. I'm just explaining. It's going to happen again in 50 years. So even though the price, and so basically what I'm saying is in 5 years when the price is stabilized on gold and silver, start reaccumulating heavy, even no matter what the price, because in 40 years from that date or thereabouts, the same thing's going to happen again. It's going to go up from its current, whatever its higher elevated current price is in 5 years. It's going to run through another bull market. So for generational wealth, one would be thinking, well, for generational wealth, in 5 years, gold is as cheap and silver is as cheap as it's going to be for the next 45 years. And then it's going to go through the roof again. So I need to be purchasing it, even if it's at silver at 200 and gold at 7,000. That'll still be cheap when it comes time to the next bull run of silver and gold. It's expensive now, and you'll make hella profit now because you bought before the bull run. But they're repetitive. They're cyclical. It always comes. And if you want generational wealth for your children, you got to teach them because they're going to see gold as a natural. Like say you have a kid that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, like Indy, maybe 9, 10, however. When they're in their 30s, gold's going to be cheap at whatever its price is because in another 20 years, the bull run for gold is going to start again. So they're not going to see the cheap price of the 900 that we got to see. To them, the cheap price will be the 7,000, 8,000, whatever it will be. And the cycle continues. It's just the price changes.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, Neil. I'm going to drop back down here. I actually got to let the dogs out too, but I'll keep
right on.
I'll keep the live stream playing in the background.
Right on. I'll probably be on for another 15 minutes if no one else comes up. I wanted to go ahead. I'm going to keep running my mouth. You can do your thing, brother.
Sounds good. Yeah, when your silver stock is worth 1.5 million K. Wowza, that's a lot. I don't have that much silver, and I've got hardly any gold. A little bit of gold, a little bit of platinum, a little bit of osmium, lots of copper, and lots of nickel. Ooh, let the dogs out. Okay. See you guys in a bit.
Right on, brother. That was a good one, Snacks. But yeah, I really want to enlighten people to a different perspective of why we're having issues right now that no one else seems to want to talk about. Because if they do talk about it, the Fed would go away a lot quicker. And I know each and every stacker out there should appreciate their point of view of this person whose video I showed you earlier, because they're all about wanting them gone big time. So, and that's another reason why I show for the stackers, the perspective that they look at it from is a longer term, more in-depth way of regrabbing our financial control of America. And it has to do with getting rid of the Fed, just like every stacker out there wants. So if we can pump up their movement a little bit, we might all get our wish and we'll be able to get rid of the Fed. The Federal Reserve, not the federal government. Are you taking off too, Gerald? Yeah, that's a form of control. Also, because of financial control, I'm sure Google helps push the right people and their shows, and quite frankly, probably introduces them to interviews with these bigger people where they keep all the money funneling in one direction. I can't say that for a fact. I haven't done any research on it, but I could see if I had financial control, that's what I would do. And I would allow you to perceive you had freedom by bolstering up people that I'm making money off of. It just seems, well, from a theft perspective, it seems logical. And thanks, Indy, for saying it was a cool show so far. You're kidding me. See, no, that's coming to an end, bro. That's coming to an end. And also buying sodas and candies, that's coming to an end too, because that's not what EBT. Dude, man, in the 70s when we were in Italy, my family was on what they called food stamps, and it wasn't food stamps. It was bologna and cheese from the government. These fools nowadays are buying Coke and candy with it. No, because that makes for future health problems. And if they can't afford food, they can't afford the health problems that they're causing by eating the wrong food. So as a nation, if we can stop that, and since it's taxpayer money, we can stop it. I say, yeah, let's go ahead and stop that. No nails getting done. No. If you're doing that, take them off and give them bologna and cheese and let them feel what it feels like in the 70s to be on food stamps. And then they might appreciate getting real food with that taxpayer funded money. That's just my perspective. Sorry to go off. I'm sure other people think differently. Oh, right on, Gerald. Yeah, well, I don't. I don't know about the hairs and nail thing, but I do know they can buy. That's the reason why I use Coke and candy, because I do know, at least out here in California, they can get sodas and candy on EBT. I'm actually guilty of it. I don't eat a lot of chocolate, but when I do buy chocolate, if I'm on EBT, it's paying for it. That's a good one, Blackwatch. I'm not sure. Elon moved there. A lot of other big companies are moving there. So I imagine long term, they had the right perspective when they went in and crunched all the numbers and did the math and figured it was a good one. So I got to believe, since they're doing well now, they know what they're talking about. Hey, what's up, Mo? Mo Silver. Okay, let me get you a chart for platinum since you asked for it. Let's go. You wanted, uh-oh. Okay, well, I can't do 3 months on this in particular one. I just picked up the first chart that came up on the Google search. It's not the best one, but this is what you want right here. From May 2025, it was $995 this May. Right now, see that red line? I am sharing screen, right? Yeah, I am sharing screen. Let me make this bigger for y'all. See that red line? I'm not making that red line. Someone else made that red line on Bullion Vault. Apparently, it's a very significant. And oh, look, it looks like it's bottoming out and starting a new all-time high. God, I hope you guys have platinum. Yeah, it looks like it's using that for bottom. So it looks like whatever this number is here, 1350 or something, is the new bottom for freaking platinum, unless that chart drops down, which it will not, because back to my last statement, Clean Air Metals out of Canada broke the price suppression of China over the BRICS platinum control, and they did have control. They mined all of it, so obviously they have to control. They're in BRICS. They're coming up with their own monetary system. So yeah, they had control, all right. They had total control over the price of platinum, and because they South Africa signed up with One Belt Road Initiative. Well, look at the country of South Africa now and its economics. It's a horrible place. I wouldn't even go visit there right now. They're so poor, and yet they have diamonds, gold, and platinum. How can that happen? That's called fraud and abuse, and it needs to be cut out. And thank you for showing up, KY Survival 76. I appreciate it. That would be nice to see. There's actually a new battery coming out. Let me see if I can't find that. Where did I have that saved? There's a new batteries coming out. It goes for 1,000 miles. It takes a couple, like 5 minutes to charge up to 18%. It's like it's an EV that you could take across country and drive it in 2.5 days because it won't run out of charge. I'm trying to find the video right now before I start running my mouth too much. Oh! Ooh. Nah, I don't want to show you guys that. Hold on, let me go back up here. You guys want to know why the Justice Department is bringing charges up against, hold on, who's that? Against, damn, what are their names? Anyhow, two intelligence, the NSA director and the CIA director are getting charges brought up on them, felony charges brought up on them right now. You guys want to hear that story? All right, we'll do that story. Hold on, let me get through the commercial. I don't want to bore you guys with Viagra commercials. All right. Benny, this is from Benny Johnson. He's got 5.3 million subscribers. Let's see. Go share screen. This will blow y'all's, and this should be national news, but it's not. I think it should be national news, shall we say. Here we go.
What's next? One of the questions that has come up, and I watched your great reporting from Alligator Alley the other day there, Alcatraz Alley. The question that is going to continue to come up, and I've seen it, I watch a lot of these interviews that Trump is on when he's out and about. People are asking about accountability. Okay. So we're going to get through the big, beautiful bill. And that's going to, once Hakeem Jeffries shuts up, there'll be a vote and we'll move the country forward with, securing our borders, getting the military up to speed where it needs to be, biggest tax cut in U.S. history. That's number one. And that's sort of one of the big issues. The economy was one of the things that Trump ran on, lowering gas prices. But the next bullet, and it is equal to this, is accountability. And this is real good. Senator Grassley released some information the other day about
Gandhi doesn't have the list.
Basically, foreign
NSA
interference,
has
specifically
it.
Chinese interference in our elections.
FBI would never have that
in
list.
the last couple of weeks.
National security reasons.
That's another document that Grassley, who's been on this like a pit bull, which I appreciate him. That's another piece that, okay, if we know for a fact that there was foreign interference in our 2020 election, was Joe Biden legitimately elected? Let's put that aside and talk about this bombshell that was released by a forcing function called FISA, which is really, at this stage, there's so many people that I know, because I'm one of them, that are forcing the intelligence system and forcing the Department of Justice to release information. I mean, for those that follow my case very closely, I just filed another amendment to my DOJ lawsuit Monday night.
Oh, he was the NSA
and
dude.
This Monday night,
Trump.
people can go look that up.
Term.
And because it's an accumulative effect of everything that has happened to our country, and for me personally, being at the sort of the number one target for the Obama regime, because I keep telling people that will listen that had I been able to stay in the White House, that there would have never been a Mueller investigation. Because, And in my book, in the book Pardon of Innocence, in that book, I describe a meeting up in Trump Tower.
Listen to
Nobody's
this.
ever reported on this, okay? And I talk about it in the book, and that's why I waited so long to come out with this book, because I knew once Trump won. I mean, I've been writing this thing since really last fall, but I really wanted to see what was going to happen with the election, because I'm not sure I would have come out with the book or not. I don't know, but I know once he won, because I made some additions into the book, because I wanted people to understand things that happened that nobody else was aware of. So, for example, in Trump Tower, after the election, prior to Trump taking over, there was a meeting with Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Jim Comey, Mike from the National Security Agency.
NSA, yep.
From the NSA, we had Mike Pompeo was in there, myself, Reince Priebus, Vice President Pence,
Listen to this.
Mike Rogers, and then a couple of other assorted staff members in a meeting in Trump Tower where they briefed us on this bullshit. Okay, they briefed us on this, on this ICA. They briefed us on it. And in that meeting, I asked a very specific question. In fact, they had Mike Rogers was the lead briefer, and the room was set up where Clapper sat right next to Rogers. And I can picture this, and I describe it in detail in the book, because it's a very important meeting. It's the one where Comey, after the end of the meeting, we were all dismissed, and Jim Comey stayed in the meeting by himself with Trump and told him about the salacious, hookers on the bed peeing on him kind of thing, which was again total bullshit. So that meeting has never been talked about anywhere, and I talk about it in this book. And the reason why I talk about it, because during that meeting, I asked a very specific question to Mike Rogers while the president was being briefed, while Rogers is briefing the president on everything that you just talked about in the last segment here. And I asked the question because I know this in detail. I said, what was your confidence level of that information in that? And Mike said, which is one of the big agencies, he's leading one of the big intelligence community agencies, the National Security Agency. Mike said, our confidence level was low. And I'm like, so what is, and I went on to explain to Trump what that meant, right? And the others, of course, I could see Clapper, I could see Brennan, and they started doing, and they're going, well, Mr. President, the majority of the intelligence community's assessment is that blah, 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 that this actually was occurring, that it was high, right? Which was, again, it was pressure by three people, Comey, Brennan, and Clapper, on the entirety of the analytic team that was putting that thing together. And the analytic team, which comes out in this report that Miranda talked about, the analytic team said, hey, we don't believe this. We're not buying into this. So the pressure by three of the key leaders in the U.S. intelligence community and one of the leaders, of course, Comey, in the law enforcement community, pressured them. Nope, doesn't make any difference what you believe. We're putting this in and we're going to run with it. That's where the left and you get the Nancy Pelosi's of the world that go, okay, perfect. Hillary Clinton, the media, the cabal that they have, in their pockets. I mean, I talk about David Ignatius in this book, Washington Post, David Ignatius. He
Has
was part
anyone
of what
heard
we
any
call
of
the
this
kill shot,
information out
right?
in the public domain?
Clapper, after a couple of meetings, one meeting in the Oval Office with Obama, another meeting between me and Susan Rice. This is all January of 2017 timeframe.
How has Overjet helped
Sorry about
us?
this.
And what I mean by
It
us,
happens.
myself,
Got one more
and my
second.
wife.
So now we have the players, I'm being one of the key ones. We've got the setup, the Oval Office on the 5th of January, the 6th of January, which is the meeting, which is the day that meeting occurred in Trump Tower. So 5 January, Barack Obama has all those guys inside of the White House in the Oval Office conspiring to get Flynn, then to get Trump. Okay, that was the essence of that meeting. Unbelievable. We have that in evidence. My case was dismissed because we were able to basically wrestle that kind of evidence out of the Department of Justice while I was going through the whole persecution. That's on the 5th of January, 2017. 6th January is the day that they had this famous meeting up in Trump Tower.
January
Nobody reports
6th.
on it. The
What
10th
else
of
happened on January 6th?
I am then in a formal
Slideshow.
meeting with Susan Rice where we do kind of a formal handoff. That next day is when the Washington Post took the kill shot based on a direction from Jim Clapper. So the smear campaign started, right? Russia, Russia, Russia. I lay this out in detail. And it's one of these things where what we have to do as Americans now, this is to your audience, okay, and to the audience that matters across this country.
Imperialistic.
You have a large
occupation,
audience and a great audience and a smart audience because you make them smart, and you tell them basically what is going on. But for the rest of this country, we are in a place now where we are in the middle of a war, Benny. This is not Democrats and Republicans, and I keep saying that every time I get an opportunity to speak to anybody. This is not about two political parties fighting each other. This is a war. This is a Marxist revolution inside of the United States of America that basically began with the likes of Barack Obama. And the plan was, and this will come out, this will eventually come out. The plan was 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton, and Benny Johnson. You wouldn't exist. I wouldn't exist. You know, we wouldn't have the alternative media and the power of the alternative media. We wouldn't have the likes of guys like General Mike Flynn out there, you know, beating the drum that's saying, hey, we're in the middle of a knife fight.
All right, that's enough. I gave you enough interesting points, but it also 100% backs the first part of my show where I said, thank you, JM. The first part of my show when I showed that lady talking about imperialistic control, Admiral Flynn is actually in the midst of fighting the imperialistic control's operatives, not the imperialistic control. So there's different levels to the fight because it's been going so long, and the fight is being brought to them on many stages right now. President Flynn, what's his name, Kennedy, Pambandi, they're getting hit in so many different directions right now. We stand the best chance since the creation of the Federal Reserve of being a free nation again. That's just my opinion, though. It's a deep state against the people. Barry Sanders. Yeah, but there you go. There were some interesting talking points, hopefully enlightening points for everybody. I love it when I make people question, because that's the best thing you can ever. You give people facts all day long. It's irrelevant if they don't know how to get them themselves. Once they start questioning, then they start getting them themselves. Then you just feed information, let them question it, and let them find out what they find out. And then everyone inform everybody of what you found out. We become so informed. No one can bullshit us. But you got to be informed first. And that's where alternative media, as Flynn was saying, small little rinky-dinky shows like mine, just takes one person to get it out there further than my little show onto a big show. And of course, Benny's show is pretty damn big. He does have about 5 million subscribers, but still, you know, if anyone who didn't see it on his show, well, you saw it on my show because it's alternative media to the controlling mechanisms that are out there. And there needs to be more of people like me and others, Independent Mini and others, JM, everybody who's got a channel, take a little time and do a little research and see if you can't contribute to helping enlighten people about the level and the intricacies of the controls that have been layered on top of us for 113 years. And breaking it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fast. But the alternative to breaking is continuous slavery and proxy wars, and our children go fight them and die as someone else makes money. And, you know, it just sucks. So we all need to become a little bit more enlightened about what's really going on. Stop thinking that it's just the headlines that's making it. Well, that's a good question. But I can tell you this. Before they came along, the British were already there. So the NSA is actually behind. Exactly. And then, as I was explaining in Jay Says the Crown, exactly. So the MSS pretty much evolved into and also the Mossad and NSA. It's amazing how far they went. The tentacles of power. Oh, that's a good question. Now we're talking. Let's see here. What are you going to put on your burger? Mike? Is it bacon? Yeah, Jay, that's again why I'm bringing this, because a lot of people are making the accusation of it's a something other than it is to fix kind of problem. And anytime I see that stuff, I instantly realize what it is they cause a problem and then they give you a fix. You take it, you think it's fixed, and they have more control. The control actually started long before 1913. The building up to be able to get to that point was a long time before that. But to get to the point of having a Federal Reserve, that's boom. That's when control was handed over. And if you want to know, I think America literally we were under a gold standard for like 50 years of a 250-year cycle that we've been in so far of a country. 300, close to 300, 250, 300, somewhere in there. But we've only been on a gold standard for about 57 years, a pure gold standard. And then from 1933 to 71, we were on a quasi gold standard. In other words, foreign countries could take a dollar bill and exchange it for gold, but Americans couldn't. So you can't consider that a gold standard. So we lost the gold standard. The only gold standard, 100% gold standard that I know of that America was on was from like 1880s to 1933. So people are also being deceived about the gold standard. It has always been money. It has always been used as money. But as far as the dollar being backed by gold, that's only been about 50 years, and quasi backed by gold from 33 to 71. And when I say quasi, again, foreign countries between 1933 and 1971 could change dollar in for gold, but American citizens couldn't take their own money and change it for gold. So you really can't consider that a gold standard. You consider that the exact opposite of a gold standard, because you, as an American citizen, couldn't trade your bill in for a dollar, but a foreign entity could. Interesting, huh? So basically, they took a lot of our bills, turned them in, and took our gold while we weren't allowed to. That's not a gold standard. What's up? Well, come on here. Let me give you some love, big guy. Sorry, Gandalf's hollering for some lovin's right now. That's what that meowing was. Where are you taking off to? Do you want lovin'? Oh, there you go. Oh, now Dixie wants some lovin'. Oh, it's going to start now. All the kittens are going to come up and want lovin'. Go away. Everyone, no lovin' right now. Ooh, damn. You got a sandwich going on there, my friend. Yeah, well, if you don't tell anyone you have it, do you really have it? And if it's not a documentable thing where those certificates were documentable, physical gold, though, is not documentable, and it's silver and platinum. That's a good way to look at it. I find taking time out to dine is taking time away from research. Oh, no. Yes, that does sound good. Where's that, a Carl's Jr.? But see, that's so bad for you. That's horrible food. But it tastes great. And that's the whole point of poison. You know, you put some good shit on top of it. So that way you enjoy killing yourself. Cheesy Western. Yeehaw. So, any other talking points people would talk about? He did. Well, damn, he didn't give me none of that freaking gold. He should have. I could use some. A couple thousand ounces, JM. There's a rumor going around that you got some withdrawal. Oh, that's JJM, not RJM. Oh, okay. Why is it JM? It wasn't me. That's one state I have never been to. It's Virginia. Or if I have, I just drove through it and I didn't realize it. Yeah, I don't think coming to California, I wouldn't suggest anyone come to California. I would suggest the exact opposite. If you're thinking of somewhere to move, don't come to the West Coast. Don't feed the beast. Take money away from the beast. More people move out here, move out of this state, the less money they have to, or the less people they have to get the money from, which means they have to raise taxes even more. And every time they raise taxes, the more people leave. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that once we start evacuating, the Democratic Party in California is dead. Yes, I am in Northern California, in the Bay Area, North Bay, right underneath Napa. But hopefully not for too much longer. Hopefully within this year or so I'll be in Alabama. See, again, reason why I like Alabama. There's a lot of high ground. It's the base of the Appalachian Mountains. A lot of hills, high ground. Not except in the two most southern counties do you have low ground where you have like swampy area. Anything higher than that, you're in high ground. That's why it's unusual. I heard of one, I think last year there was a tornado in Alabama. It's actually quite unusual to have tornadoes in hilly country because tornadoes prefer flat ground for the pressure differential of the atmosphere. So, but yeah, there was apparently a tornado in Alabama last year somewhere in the center part of it, which I thought was real weird. We call them rednecks. And they actually help keep the place free. Because if the criminals are scared of some of those people, do you think those criminals are coming in where those people are? It's like when someone's coming walking down the road in Alabama, you just need a tape recorder and a speaker microphone somewhere playing, and motherfucker won't come on your property. Yeah, rednecks. Hillbillies are further north. Actually, I would equate hillbillies to a Tennessee, Kentucky area. Personally, I don't know what it actually consists of, if there is actually a breakdown of where the hillbilly would reside and where the redneck would reside. Actually, I think it's more like the term Viking. I think you can be a redneck anywhere in the world because redneck is more of an attitude than a lifestyle. And the Vikings, actually, there's a misnomenclature of the language interpretation was, Arkansas. The word Viking isn't a term that the Norse gave to themselves as a people, but they said they're going Viking. What that was means like we're going out raiding, but they would go out Viking. And they would say, we're Viking, and everyone else heard, oh, they're calling themselves Viking. No, they were like raiding. And what they were actually saying is, we're raiding you with their axes up in there. But they used the words, we're Viking you. When people called them Vikings, and now to this day, historically, they're called Vikings, but they were not in their time period known as Vikings. So, that's where history comes into play. And also, the language of history and how it gets misinterpreted through different interpretations. The winner of history wrote history. The winner of the history was the one getting attacked by people saying, we're Viking. So they called them in history Vikings, which is a perfect point on how the winners of history write history when that actual written history can be wrong. Oh God, that's a horrible thought, dude. Oh man, how could you even conceive that together? Damn. Yeah, most people don't, Jay. Oh, you're talking about the hillbillies to okay, yeah, I could see that as an explanation. What did Gerald say that he needs thanks for? I don't see him coming. Homeschooling, like, okay, way back there. Again, Indy, late with the comment. That's okay. Blame your kids. All moms blame their kids. It's acceptable. Going off of my point that I just made, Indy. Act like a child. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end this. I just figured I'd do a live stream. Anyone wants to throw some prayers out there? I just got screwed on a union ironworking job. And, it wasn't union how it happened. I went back to the hall and everyone was like, sorry, deal. So, sis, if you're a believer in Christianity, please say a prayer that I get a job because I am tapped. It's been 17 months. I am literally tapped. So if that could happen, if you guys, any of you that are Christians, want to throw me out a prayer, except for 79. Dun, dun, dun. As we're ending the show, she shows up. I love that coin. But yes, I am ending this. I'm ending the show, 79. Sorry. You guys have a great week ahead. I'll probably throw in another live stream if I don't get a job. But hopefully, with all y'all praying for me, hopefully it'll help. And I'll get a job and you won't see me for a while. And 79, I'll be happy. All right, you guys take care again. I hope it was an enlightening show and it brought you a different perspective of what is also going along with everything else. So you might be able to perceive the bullshit a little bit clearer. And if not, no big deal. It was still entertaining, I hope. And with that said, peace out.